I barely recognized the woman in the mirror. At 67, I'd spent most of my life in simple clothes. Loose blouses and easy-fit pants that worked for my job and hid my figure. But now I stood in a fitted navy blue dress, with a delicate brooch pinned near the collar, the whole outfit costing more than I'd usually spend in half a year. "It suits you beautifully, Mrs. Whitaker," the store assistant said kindly, adjusting the fabric at my waist. "The color brings out your eyes." I nodded, not used to compliments, but today I wanted to believe them. My only son Jacob was getting married in 2 weeks to Rachel. And despite the distance between us, I wanted to look graceful, composed. "I'll take it," I said, stepping back into the fitting room. After paying, I stood by the shop window watching cars roll past on Pinebrook Avenue. It hit me, I'd spent my entire life here in Fairview. Opened my first laundromat here. Buried my husband here. Raised my boy here. Now, Jacob's wedding. Probably the last big thing keeping me tied to this place. I carried the dress bag out to my old Toyota and checked the time. 2 o'clock. My next stop was a 3 p.m. appointment at Bluebell Weddings, a sleek new office on the city's edge, full of photos of smiling couples. A cheerful girl named Madison greeted me. "Hi, Mrs. Whitaker. I've got everything ready for you," she said, laying folders out across the desk. "Are you sure you want to keep your involvement private?" I nodded. That had been my rule from the beginning. "Jacob and Rachel can't know I'm paying for most of this," I told her. "They believe her parents are footing the bill." Madison looked surprised. I imagine she wasn't used to parents hiding their contributions. Usually it's the opposite. But I added, "My son and I have a complicated relationship. He wouldn't accept money from me." Not directly. I didn't get into the whole story. How I raised Jacob alone after my husband passed 16 years ago. How I built up my laundromats and sold them 5 years back. How when Jacob went off to college he started acting ashamed of our roots, like I didn't fit his new world. And once I had money, suddenly he started paying attention again, but only to the checkbook, not me. "It's all confidential, just like we discussed," Madison said gently, pushing a stack of papers toward me. "Banquet venue, music, photos. Everything." I flipped through each page. Over $80,000. A lot, but I could handle it. Jacob was my only child. And no matter how strained things had become, I wanted his wedding to be beautiful. "If anything gets cancelled in the final week, we can't refund the full amount," Madison warned as she handed me a pen. "I understand," I said, signing the last line. "But the wedding's going forward." I had no idea then how wrong I'd be. 2 weeks passed. Jacob never called. No word, no invitation. But I figured it was just a mix-up. What son wouldn't invite his mother to his wedding? That morning the sky was clear. I got up early, showered, curled my now fully gray hair and slipped into the new dress. Light makeup, soft perfume, and the wedding gift. An envelope with a generous check for their honeymoon. I drove myself to the Rosemont Hotel, the fanciest in Fairview. Parked between luxury cars, I hesitated for a second, wondering if I should have taken a cab instead of showing up in my old sedan. But that was silly. I've always been practical and I wasn't going to start pretending now. The lobby buzzed with chatter. Guests in elegant outfits sipped champagne and laughed. I scanned the room for familiar faces. None. Most must have been Rachel's side. Jacob had never really introduced me to many of his friends or her family. Then I heard it. "Grandma." A cheerful voice. I turned and saw Emily, my 22-year-old granddaughter from Jacob's first marriage, running toward me. Tall and slender with bright blue eyes and dark hair just like her father's. Emily was the only one who really stayed in touch. "You made it." She hugged me tightly. "I was afraid you wouldn't come, because of everything." She didn't say it outright, but I knew what she meant. The tension between Jacob and me. I smiled. How could I miss my son's wedding? She looked beautiful in a soft blue bridesmaid dress. She tucked a strand of hair behind her ear and smiled. "Come on, I'll introduce you to everyone," she said warmly. But just then Jacob appeared. My son looked tense, his smile strained despite the festive atmosphere. At 42 he was still a handsome man, tall, lean, with a neatly trimmed beard already streaked with gray. His eyes, so much like his late father's, landed on me with a flash of irritation. "Mom," he said like he couldn't believe what he was seeing. "What are you doing here?" I was stunned. That was not the greeting I expected. "I came to your wedding, of course." He glanced around quickly, then took my elbow and led me away from the other guests. His voice was low but firm. We talked about this. You're not on the guest list. I blinked, confused. We never talked about anything, I said. You've barely spoken to me in the last month. He sighed, looking at me like I just didn't get it. Mom, this is a high-end event. Rachel's parents are here, so are their friends, our colleagues. He trailed off, searching for the right words. You wouldn't feel comfortable. That's when it hit me. I wasn't forgotten. I was deliberately left out. A woman who spent her life building a business with her hands didn't fit into the image he wanted to present. You're ashamed of me, I said, not as a question but as a fact. No, it's not like that, Jacob replied quickly, but his eyes said otherwise. Rachel just wants everything to be perfect. Her parents have spent a lot. And you don't want your laundromat mom ruining the show, I finished for him. Please don't start, he said, clearly irritated. Let's just talk after the honeymoon. Something smaller, just us. Right then Rachel walked up. She looked flawless. 38, slim, styled to perfection and wearing a designer gown. Her expression was polite but distant. Jacob, is everything all right? She asked, giving me a once-over. Yeah, everything's fine, he said. Mom was just leaving. Rachel gave a rehearsed smile. Oh, Mrs. Whitaker, such a pity you missed the ceremony. Maybe next time. Her words cut like a knife. I looked at Jacob, waiting for him to speak up for me. But he avoided my eyes. I'm sorry, but you weren't invited, he said quietly. Please go. Tears burned behind my eyes, but I refused to cry. Not in front of them. I'd spent years making excuses for him, pretending his distance didn't hurt. But something inside me cracked for good. Whatever you say, I said calmly. Congratulations to both of you. I turned to leave, but Emily reached for me, her voice breaking. Grandma, please stay. I want you here. I touched her cheek softly. It's all right, sweetheart. Call me tomorrow. As I walked away, I felt the stares of guests behind me. Some were clearly watching the scene unfold. I wondered what they'd been told. Did they know the groom's own mother wasn't welcome? Outside the Rosemont Hotel, the sun was still shining, but it felt colder now. I reached my car, got in, and just sat for a while staring at the steering wheel, trying to process what had just happened. I glanced at my phone. It was 4:20 p.m. The ceremony would begin in 40 minutes. The banquet, fully paid for by me, was set for 7. I looked at the envelope with the honeymoon check still tucked in my purse. Then I started the car and slowly drove away from the hotel, where my son was beginning his new life, without his mother. The drive home felt endless. I barely noticed the traffic lights or other cars. Jacob's words echoed in my head like slaps. You weren't called. Elite event. Just leaving. 67 years of living, and this was how it ended, with me being cast aside at my own son's wedding. My street looked the same as always. Quiet, with tidy middle-class homes and tall maple trees lining the sidewalks. I parked outside my little white house with the picket fence. For a moment I just sat there frozen. Getting out would mean accepting what had just happened. Finally I stepped out and walked slowly to the porch. My hand trembled as I unlocked the door. Inside I kicked off my shoes and wandered into the living room. The place where I had lived most of my life suddenly felt unfamiliar, hollow. On the mantel, framed photos stared back at me. Jacob as a boy, grinning with a missing front tooth. Jacob in high school with a soccer ball. Jacob on graduation day. And now, Jacob, the man who didn't want his mother at his wedding. In every photo Jacob was smiling at me. When had that changed? When did I go from being his comfort to his embarrassment? I picked up an old picture. Me, Michael, and little Jacob standing barefoot on a beach. Michael was 38. I was 33. Jacob was just 8. We looked like any ordinary middle-class family enjoying a summer day. What would you say now, Michael? I whispered, tracing his face with my finger. What would you say to your son? But Michael had been gone for 16 years. A sudden heart attack took him when Jacob was 26. Back then my son still loved me. He used to visit every weekend. He wasn't ashamed of who he came from. I set the photo back and sat down. Michael and I had started our laundromat on the corner of Cedar and Grant. He handled the machines and customers, and I took care of the books and daily operations. After he died, I had to run it all on my own. But I made it work. Over time, I grew it into a chain of 7 laundromats across Fairview. In my kitchen drawer, I still keep old checks. Money I gave Jacob through the years. For his first apartment, for his wedding to Jessica, for the lawyer when they divorced, for Emily's school, for his credit card debt when he hit a rough patch. I was always there for him, emotionally and financially. But as the years passed, he pulled further away. His job and insurance, his new social circle, his ambition, they all created distance. 5 years ago, when I sold the business, he suddenly started checking in again. Visiting more. Calling more. I knew what it was about. He wanted to know what I'd made off the sale. I got $2.3 million. More money than I'd ever imagined. I bought a new car, fixed up the house, and put the rest into safe investments. When Jacob heard the number, he came to me with a pitch. Some tech startup his friend was launching. I said no. It was too risky. He called me narrow-minded. Told me I didn't understand the future. I reminded him that my so-called old-fashioned ways had built something solid. We argued. After that, he called less. Visited rarely. When he got engaged to Rachel 8 months ago, I was thrilled. I thought maybe this was our chance to reconnect. I was wrong. The phone in my purse buzzed. It was Dan, my bank advisor. A routine check-in. "Good afternoon, Mrs. Whitaker. Just checking on your accounts," he said cheerfully. I stared at the wall clock. It was already 5:15. The ceremony had begun. Jacob and Rachel were saying their vows. The banquet, planned for 120 guests with fine wine, music, and dancing, would start in less than 2 hours. "Paid for by me, Mrs. Whitaker?" Dan asked again. "Sorry," I coughed. "Quick question. Is it possible to cancel any payments due in the next few hours?" He hesitated. "Technically yes, if they haven't cleared." "What are we talking about?" I opened my inbox and found the list. The Rosemont Hotel, Oak Ridge Catering, Hartwell Photography, Lavender and Vine Floral. Around $80,000 in total. I read each name aloud, feeling more certain with every word. Dan paused. "These are significant payments. May I ask why?" "They're for my son's wedding," I said, my voice calm. "But something's changed. I want to cancel everything right now." He was silent, then said, "Understood. There may be cancellation fees." "I'm fine with penalties," I interrupted. "Just do it." I heard him typing. "Hey. I see the transactions. Most are scheduled for tomorrow, so we can freeze them. A few might already be processing. I'll contact the back office immediately." "Thank you, Dan. And one more thing." I hesitated, then added, "I'd like to move that money into a trust. For my granddaughter, Emily Whitaker." Dan replied gently, "Of course. That can be arranged. We'll just need to start the paperwork. We can begin today." Dan promised to call back once the payments were stopped. As I hung up, a strange calm washed over me. For the first time in years, I'd stood my ground. I wasn't letting Jacob walk all over me again. Next, I called Bluebell Weddings. Madison picked up on the third ring. "Bluebell Weddings, how can I help?" "Hi, Madison. This is Leslie Whitaker." There was a pause. "Oh, Mrs. Whitaker. The ceremony's already begun. Is there something wrong?" "I'm canceling all payments," I said plainly. She hesitated, then let out a nervous laugh. "I'm sorry, what?" "I already contacted my bank. The payments will be stopped." "But the banquet's in less than an hour. You can't just." "I can," I said. "And I am. It's in our contract." Her tone turned frantic. "Please, let's talk about this. What happened?" "The solution's already in motion," I replied. "The money's not coming. The vendors, the hotel, this is going to cause a scene." "That's not my problem." There was silence. I could almost feel her scrambling for words. "I'll have to inform the bride and groom." "Go ahead," I said calmly. "Let them know their mystery sponsor pulled out." "But they think the bride's parents paid." "Then maybe it's time they learned the truth, that the groom's mother, who wasn't even invited, paid for everything." "Oh my God," Madison whispered. "I didn't know." "Well, now you do. Goodbye." I ended the call and set the phone down. My hands trembled, but it wasn't fear. It was freedom. For years I'd let Jacob take from me my time, my love, my money, without giving anything in return. I'd waited for kindness that never came. And now I was done. Just then the phone rang again. It was Emily. I took a deep breath and answered. "Grandma, where are you? Why'd you leave?" "Your father asked me to go, sweetheart," I said softly. He said I wasn't invited. No. He didn't, she trailed off. Yes, he did. I heard voices in the background. Sounded like the ceremony had just ended and the guests were moving to the reception. That's awful. He had no right. Don't let it ruin your day, honey. Go have fun. Fun, she whispered, her voice breaking. How can I enjoy this after what he did to you? Life isn't always fair, I said. This won't be the last time. Emily's voice lowered. Grandma, something's going on. The hotel manager's arguing with Dad and Rachel. They look upset. I didn't reply. Either Dan had acted fast or Madison had already broken the news. Grandma? You still there? Yes, sweetheart. Whatever happens tonight, just remember, I love you. Always. You sound like you're saying goodbye. I'm not, I said gently. Just wanted you to know I'll always be here for you. I love you, Grandma. I love you too. There were voices calling her name. I've gotta go. Something's happening with the banquet. I'll call you later. All right, darling. Go. I hung up and leaned back. It was done. No going back now. But for the first time in ages, I didn't feel like a doormat. I felt like myself. The phone rang again, Jacob's name on the screen. I just stared at it, then let it go to voicemail. A message came through a minute later. Mom, we need to talk. Call me. I turned the phone face down on the table. Let him wait. Let him feel the sting for once. I stood and walked to the window. The sun was setting, lighting the sky in pink and gold. And strangely, I felt more alive than I had in years. Like I'd finally dropped a heavy burden I'd carried far too long. Back at the Rosemont Hotel, Emily rubbed her bracelet anxiously, watching chaos unfold. What was supposed to be her father's perfect wedding was unraveling. The reception hall, once dazzling with white linens, crystal chandeliers and blooming centerpieces, was now buzzing with confusion. In one corner, her father was in a heated exchange with the hotel manager, a short, stocky man in a dark suit. Rachel stood nearby, her flawless makeup doing little to hide her panic. There's got to be a mistake, Jacob insisted. The payments were confirmed. The manager shook his head. I just got word from our finance office. The funds were pulled. No payment, no service. But that's crazy. Rachel's parents. Emily frowned. Rachel's parents? She always assumed her dad had paid. He liked to brag about being successful, independent. Then Rachel raised her voice. Check again. There must be an error. The guests are already here. We can't cancel. He looked around. Over 100 guests had taken their seats or stood chatting nervously, all wondering what was going on. Just then Rachel's parents, Thomas and Susan Westbrook, approached. What's going on? Thomas asked. Why isn't the champagne out? Rachel turned to him, stricken. Dad. The payments. They were cancelled. Cancelled, he repeated. What payments? Emily watched as her father and Rachel exchanged quick, guilty looks. A woman from the wedding agency entered the room, clipboard in hand. Mr. and Mrs. Whitaker, she said. I need a word. They stepped aside and Emily quietly moved closer. The main sponsor has withdrawn all payments, the woman explained. The bank confirmed it. The decision is final. Main sponsor? Jacob asked. What sponsor? Who? Your mother, Mr. Whitaker, she said. Leslie Whitaker paid for most of the wedding. Emily's breath caught. Grandma? She had no idea. Jacob went pale, then flushed red. That's ridiculous. My mother didn't pay. It was Rachel's parents. Thomas Westbrook stepped forward. Excuse me? We only paid for the rehearsal dinner. You told us you were covering the rest. Rachel stared at Jacob wide-eyed. Jacob, what's going on? Jacob's jaw clenched. He pulled out his phone and began frantically dialing. Emily slipped away through the glass doors onto the hotel terrace, using the growing chaos inside to make a quick call. She pulled out her phone and dialed her grandmother. Grandma, she said as soon as Mrs. Whitaker answered. It's a mess here. What's going on? There was a pause, then a quiet sigh. I suppose they found out I canceled the payments. Emily lowered her voice, though she was alone. You really paid for Dad's wedding? Why didn't anyone know? Because your father wouldn't accept help from me, her grandmother said gently. You know how things are between us. He wanted to impress everyone with this big wedding, but he couldn't afford it. Emily leaned on the railing, the warm evening air brushing her face. The sunset painted the sky in soft pink and gold, beautiful and completely at odds with the scene unfolding behind her. "Then why cancel everything?" she asked, already suspecting the answer. "Because he told me I wasn't invited. That I didn't belong at their exclusive event." Emily closed her eyes. She loved her father, but his pride and obsession with appearances often went too far. "I'm sorry, Grandma. He was wrong. Forgive him, please." "It's not about forgiveness, sweetheart. It's about dignity. I supported him for years. And all I wanted was a little respect. But I was never enough for him. Never classy enough, never polished enough." Emily heard shuffling behind her and turned to see staff inside the banquet hall clearing tables. Florists were removing arrangements and caterers were boxing up untouched food. Guests looked around, confused. "Grandma, they're breaking everything down. The whole place is falling apart." "I'm sorry you're in the middle of this, Emily," her grandmother said quietly. "You shouldn't have to be. It's humiliating, for Dad and Rachel. All the guests are watching them fall apart." "Some lessons come hard," Mrs. Whitaker said. Inside, Jacob was arguing with the catering staff. Rachel stood beside him, makeup smudged, hair unraveling. "He's losing it," Emily reported. "He's yelling. Rachel's about to cry. Your father never could handle pressure. When things fall apart, so does he." Just then, Emily saw Jacob take out his phone again. A second later, her grandmother's phone rang. "He's calling you," she said. "I know. That's the 5th time," Mrs. Whitaker replied. "I won't answer. He needs to cool off." Inside, things were deteriorating fast. The hotel manager announced that unless the bill was paid within 30 minutes, guests would have to leave. Rachel's parents, Thomas and Susan Westbrook, looked stunned. Thomas was now pointing angrily at Jacob, demanding answers. "Grandma, Rachel's dad is confronting him. He says Dad told them he was covering everything, and now he's finding out you were paying all along." "Jacob always tried to look more successful than he was," her grandmother said bitterly. "He lived to impress." Emily moved closer to the group, staying on the edge. "You promised to handle it all," Thomas said. "You claimed your business was booming. And now your mother, who wasn't even invited, was footing the bill." "That's not true," Jacob snapped. "She must have done it behind my back." Thomas snorted. "The only thing unclear is how my daughter married someone like you." Rachel broke down in tears. "Dad, please don't say that. Not in front of everyone." But it was too late. Guests were whispering, some recording the scene on their phones. Emily whispered, "Grandma, it's awful. Thomas just called Dad a liar in front of everyone." "I'm sorry you have to witness that," Mrs. Whitaker replied. "But your father made his choice when he pushed me out of his life." A loud clap silenced the room. The hotel manager spoke up. "Ladies and gentlemen, due to unforeseen circumstances, the event is cancelled. Please exit the hall within 15 minutes. The murmurs grew louder. Guests began to gather their things, approaching the couple with sympathetic looks. Rachel, sobbing, ran out with her mother. Jacob stood frozen, humiliated. "They've shut it all down," Emily told her grandmother. "They're sending everyone home." "I understand," Mrs. Whitaker replied gently. "You should leave too, honey. Don't stay in that mess." "What about Dad? I can't just walk away." "You're a kind girl, Emily. Kinder than he deserves. But he needs to face the consequences himself." Emily hesitated. She loved her father, but the way he treated her grandmother was unforgivable. Just then Jacob spotted her and marched over. "Were you talking to her?" he snapped, pointing at the phone. "Give it to me." "Dad, not now," she said, stepping back. "Give it here," he shouted. Emily lifted the phone. "Grandma, he wants to talk to you. He's really angry." "I hear him," her grandmother said. "It's your choice. If you don't want to give it to him, you don't have to. But I'm ready." Before she could decide, Jacob snatched the phone from her hand. "Mom," he barked into the receiver. "What did you do? You ruined everything. This was my wedding." Emily couldn't hear the response, but Jacob's face shifted, from rage to shock and back again. "You humiliated me," he growled. "In front of Rachel's family. My friends. You did this on purpose, didn't you? Out of revenge." There was silence, then more shouting. I can't pay you now. I don't have the cash and banks are closed. His shoulders slumped. Please, Mom. Just restore the payments. We'll talk later. My reputation, my marriage. It's all falling apart. More silence. Then he exploded. Fine, he yelled and threw the phone back at Emily. He caught it just in time. Grandma, she asked softly. I'm here, sweetheart, Mrs. Whitaker said, calm but exhausted. I couldn't help him. He's furious. Emily looked at her father pacing, gesturing wildly at the hotel staff. I've never seen him like this. He's always had a temper, Mrs. Whitaker replied. But maybe this time it'll teach him something. Even as a kid, Jacob never handled disappointment well. If something didn't go his way, a tantrum followed. Now, standing in the wreckage of his wedding, he was frantically calling people, clearly desperate. I think he's trying to borrow money, Emily whispered into the phone. He's calling everyone he knows. It won't help, Mrs. Whitaker replied calmly. No one has $80,000 lying around for a last-minute loan. 80,000? Emily echoed stunned. That's what the wedding cost, her grandmother said. Your father wanted to impress Rachel's family. All that status comes with a price. The hall was nearly empty now. Most guests had left. The hotel staff was clearing what remained. Centerpieces, plates, chairs. Rachel walked back in with her parents. Her makeup was streaked, eyes red. She was furious, lashing out at Jacob, who stood there helpless. I don't think their marriage is going to last, Emily said softly. She's furious. If they can't survive this, then it was never strong to begin with, her grandmother replied. The hotel manager approached Jacob, pointing to his watch. Jacob nodded in defeat. They're kicking us out, Emily sighed. Manager's not asking anymore, he's ordering. Do you have somewhere to stay? Mrs. Whitaker asked. Yes, I've got a room here. There was supposed to be a family brunch tomorrow. Good. Stay there tonight. Don't go to your dad's. Let him cool off. I will, Emily nodded. And Grandma, I love you. I get why you did it. I really do. I love you too, sweetheart. Whatever's between me and your father, it doesn't change how I feel about you. They said goodbye and Emily tucked her phone into her purse. The banquet hall was nearly deserted. Jacob stood by the exit, typing furiously into his phone. Rachel and her parents had already gone. The wedding, meant to start a new life, had ended in ruins. Emily walked over. Papa, she said gently, let's go. He looked up and the pain in his eyes caught her off guard. She ruined everything, he muttered. Out of spite. No, Emily said firmly. You ruined it when you told your own mother she wasn't welcome. She turned and walked out, leaving him alone in the wreckage of what was meant to be the happiest day of his life. The next morning I woke to pounding on the front door. At first I thought it was a dream, but it grew louder, angrier. The clock read just after 7 a.m. Mom, open up. I know you're in there. Jacob's voice. Still calm, I slipped on my robe and opened the door. He looked terrible, rumpled suit, red eyes, unshaved. He stormed past me into the house. You ruined my life, he shouted, jabbing his finger at me. Good morning, Jacob, I said evenly. You're up early. Don't stand there acting like nothing happened. I walked into the kitchen. I needed coffee for this. I know exactly what happened. You told me to leave your wedding. So I canceled the payments. You planned this, he accused. You paid in secret just to sabotage me. No, I said, turning on the kettle. When I arranged everything 2 months ago, I had no idea I wouldn't be invited. What mother would assume that? He paused, then snapped. You should have told me. It was manipulative. Would you have accepted my help if I had? He didn't answer. You humiliated me in front of everyone, he continued. In front of Rachel's parents. The kettle whistled. I poured the water and stirred my coffee. Want some? No, he slammed his fist on the table. I want an explanation. I sat down with my cup. Why'd I do it? Why did you kick me out of your wedding? Why say I wasn't good enough? I wasn't ashamed, he mumbled. It's just, the wedding was for a certain crowd. A crowd your mother doesn't belong in, I finished for him. Because I'm not wealthy or polished enough. Because I worked with my hands. He looked like he wanted to argue but had no words. He shrugged. What's done is done. But fix it. Fix it how? I asked. Call the bank. Tell them it was a mistake. It's too late, I said. The funds are already back in my account. I got the notice last night. Then make new payments, he barked, pacing. Rachel's parents are furious. We had to stay in a motel last night. I watched him, remembering the little boy who'd throw fits when he didn't get his way. Some things hadn't changed. Where were you planning to honeymoon? I asked. Italy. 2 weeks. We were flying out tomorrow. And who paid for that? Me and Rachel. No, I said quietly. That was part of the wedding package. I paid for that too. He froze. What? What's the total? $86,400. He sat down slowly. That's not possible. Where did you get that kind of money? I sold the business 5 years ago. For $2.3 million. I invested most of it. I can afford to spend on my son. He stared at me in silence, processing. Maybe for the first time he saw me as more than just mom. I saw the recognition flicker across his face. Then fade, replaced by something familiar. Calculation. He leaned in, voice softer. Mom, I know I hurt you. I should have invited you. That was a mistake. I waited quietly. I knew what was coming next. It was a tactic I'd seen before. Admit you're wrong, then move straight into asking for something. Jacob leaned forward. You don't want my marriage to start like this, do you? Think about Rachel. This wasn't her fault. And her parents, they're important people. They could help both of us one day. Help me, I said, half smiling. An old woman like me? He didn't catch the sarcasm. Thomas knows people in every field. Doctors, assisted living centers. I laughed out loud. A nursing home? Really, Jacob? I'm 67, healthy, and have enough saved to live comfortably. He stumbled, flustered. I was just giving an example. But look, if you restore the payments, we can reschedule everything. I'll invite you. You'll sit in the place of honor. I shook my head. No, Jacob. The money's not coming back. His face darkened in an instant. What do you mean, no? This is my wedding. High reputation. The money's already been reassigned, I said calmly. It's going to Emily. I opened a trust in her name last night. What? He snapped. $80,000 for her education, college, grad school, whatever she needs. She's 22. Her life's ahead of her. That was my wedding money, he shouted. No, I said. It was meant for your happiness. But you made it clear I wasn't part of that picture. So I found a better use. He jumped up, face red with rage. You did this to get back at me. You wanted to ruin everything. I stood too, meeting his eyes. No. I did it because for the first time in years I chose to respect myself. I let you ignore me, use me, lean on me, and never once did you say thank you. I waited for you to treat me like a mother, not just a wallet. I paused, holding back the tears. But yesterday crossed the line. Telling your own mother she doesn't belong at your wedding. That's not just ungrateful. It's cruel. Jacob's fists clenched. You're going to regret this. I swear. The only thing I regret is letting you treat me like this for so long. You, he was speechless with fury. What am I supposed to tell Rachel? Her parents. They're waiting for answers. Tell them the truth, I said. That you excluded your mother and she withdrew her support. Or lie, you're good at that too. He picked up a coffee cup and threw it. It shattered on the floor, coffee grounds everywhere. This isn't over, he hissed. I'll fight that trust. She's my daughter, I have rights. You can try, I said quietly. But it's airtight. My lawyer made sure of it. That money is Emily's. Not yours. Not mine. He stood frozen, then swept everything off the counter. Salt shaker, sugar bowl, even a vase of plastic flowers. I don't ever want to see you again, he yelled from the doorway. You're not my mother. You never were. Those words should have cut me. But instead I felt peace. Like the last toxic thread between us had snapped. Goodbye, Jacob, I said softly. He slammed the door hard enough to rattle the windows. Seconds later I heard his car screech away. I sat down, staring at the broken cup on the floor. Fitting, I thought. Our relationship, like that cup, shattered beyond repair. But instead of grief I felt calm. For the first time in years I was doing what felt right. No longer sacrificing my dignity for someone else's approval. The phone rang. Emily. Grandma. Her voice trembled. Are you okay? Dad just called. He's furious. I'm all right, dear, I said. He came over. We talked. He's upset, but he'll get over it. He told me you gave the wedding money to me. For school. Is that true? I smiled. Yes. Here's now. A trust fund. For tuition, grad school, whatever you choose. But Grandma, that's so much. I can't take it. You can, I interrupted. And I want you to. It's the best investment I could make. You're smart kind. You deserve a future. There was silence on the line, then a soft, thank you. I could hear her tears. I just worry Dad will cut you off forever now. That's his choice, I said. If he wants to make peace, I'll be here. But I won't be disrespected again. I understand, she whispered. I'm on your side. What he did, it was awful. We spoke a little more. She told me Rachel and her parents left the motel early. Jacob had stayed behind, alone. The wedding didn't just fall apart. The marriage was crumbling too. After we hung up, I started cleaning the mess he left. As I swept up the broken porcelain, I started thinking, maybe it was time to move on. Fairview held too many ghosts. I opened my laptop and browsed real estate listings, just out of curiosity at first. But when the bank called again, I knew the decision was made. Mrs. Whitaker, Dan said, the trust for Emily has been fully executed. The funds are secured. Thank you, I said. He hesitated. Your son called. He said the trust was a mistake. Tried to get details. There was no mistake, I said simply. That money's exactly where it belongs. He threatened legal action. He can try. It won't change anything. After the call, I kept browsing. Not just houses, cruises. I'd always dreamed of seeing the world. But first it was Michael, then the business, then Jacob. Well, I was free. 4 months later, I sat on the terrace of my new home in Savannah, Georgia. The magnolias swayed in the breeze. I sipped iced lemonade in my wicker chair, soaking up the warmth. Selling the house in Fairview had been quick, 3 days over asking price. It felt like life itself was nudging me to move forward. Finding this cozy one-story with a garden in a quiet neighborhood took a little longer, but the moment I saw it, I knew. It was mine. People said I was crazy, moving at 67. Said I should have stayed where things were familiar. But I didn't want familiar. I wanted air, space, and change. I furnished the new place from scratch. No old dishes, no old furniture. I explored the city, its parks, shops, galleries. I walked without a purpose and smiled more than I had in years. At the local community center, I signed up for watercolor classes. I hadn't picked up a paintbrush since I was a girl. Life, work, and raising Jacob had pushed all of that aside. But now the brush felt like an old friend in my hand. My phone buzzed. A message from Emily. She'd attached a photo of her latest project, an intricate model she built for her architecture program. The caption read, "Got the highest grade. Thanks for giving me this chance, Grandma." I smiled. After the wedding mess, she'd enrolled in a master's program, something she once thought she couldn't afford. Thanks to the trust fund, she could focus on her dream, not the cost. Emily was the only one from my old life I spoke to regularly. We messaged often, called every few days, and last month she flew in for a weekend. We strolled through historic Savannah, sipped coffee in quiet cafes, talked about her classes and my new routines. Eventually the topic of Jacob came up. "Dad's still angry," she said, stirring her cup. "He doesn't mention you, but I can tell, your name makes him tense." I nodded. That didn't surprise me. Even as a boy, Jacob held grudges longer than most. "Are he and Rachel still together?" I asked. "They are, technically," Emily said, making a face. "But after that wedding disaster, things were never the same." She told me about their second attempt. Just 30 people at a small restaurant instead of 120 at the Rosemont Hotel. No band, no Italy honeymoon, just a weekend nearby. Rachel's parents sat through the whole thing like they were attending a funeral. Jacob looked miserable. Rachel forced a smile. It was awkward for everyone. "And get this," Emily added. "Dad gave a speech and thanked Rachel's parents for paying for the wedding." I shook my head. Typical Jacob, he'd rather lie than admit his mother had footed the bill. "They stay together," Emily said. "But she's always criticizing him. He looks deflated. Not like himself." Her voice was soft. She loved her dad despite everything. Did he ever ask about me? I asked. No. But he knows we talk. Sometimes when I'm on the phone with you, he listens from the next room. I think he misses you, just won't admit it. I didn't respond. If he missed me, he knew how to find me. My number hadn't changed. The memory faded as I looked around my terrace. The sun was setting and I had packing to do. In 3 days, I'd be boarding a Caribbean cruise, a 2-week dream I'd postponed for decades. Derek and I used to talk about trips like this. One day, we'd say, after the business takes off, after Jacob grows up. But life had other plans. Derek passed away and I kept pushing that dream aside, for work, for family, for Jacob. But now it was finally happening. The trip was expensive, but I could afford it. The sale of my house in Fairview left me with extra funds, and my investments provided steady income. I'd earned this. Still, a small voice inside asked, what if something happens? What if you get sick alone in a foreign place? Shouldn't you save more? I'd learned to quiet that voice. My financial advisor, Tamara, a bright young woman, had said it best. You've worked your whole life. You can live fully and still stay financially secure. I laid out my cruise essentials. A new swimsuit, sunglasses, wide-brimmed hat, a camera, and a pocket Spanish phrasebook. I'd been studying for 2 weeks, hoping to chat a little with locals. My phone buzzed again. It was Martha, my friend from art class. Leslie, you ready? I'll be there in 20. Yes, Martha. Waiting for you. I texted back, heading to change. I pulled out a floral dress I'd bought recently, bright, playful. Something I never would have worn back in Fairview. There I was, Jacob's mother. The widow. The laundromat woman. Here in Savannah I was just Leslie. Free. Martha arrived right on time, energetic as ever, with a short haircut and her signature laugh. Divorced, child-free, world-traveled, she was nothing like my old friends. Oh, this dress is perfect, she beamed when she saw me. You're going to shine in the Caribbean. We walked to a little seafood place nearby. Over dinner, Martha shared stories. She'd visited several of the islands on my cruise route. Try the rum in Jamaica, she said, grinning. And haggle at the markets. It's expected. I smiled, soaking in her advice. There was a time I would have never imagined myself in a market in Jamaica, let alone bartering in Spanish. But now it felt possible. Then Martha asked quietly, your son, any contact? I shook my head. No. And I don't expect any. She nodded. My mom used to say, we raise children for the world, not for ourselves. He's living his life. You're allowed to live yours. Those simple words hit home. He was right. For once, I wasn't waiting on anyone's approval. After dinner, we strolled through Savannah's twilight streets. The city glowed, balconies, fountains, Spanish moss swaying in the evening breeze. We reached the riverfront where ships were docked. In 3 days I'll be on one of those, I said, smiling. Martha winked. And that'll just be the beginning. After the Caribbean, Martha talked about the Mediterranean, Alaska, Scandinavia. Let me get through this cruise first, I laughed. We said goodbye outside my house. She gave me a tight hug. I'll drive you to the airport, she said. And bring me back a magnet from Barbados, I collect them. Back inside I checked my cruise list one last time. Everything was packed. I sat by the window, looking out at the garden bathed in soft street light. My thoughts drifted to Jacob. Eloise had called 2 weeks earlier. He'd taken a new job, still in insurance but with a smaller company and lower pay. Rachel wasn't thrilled, said it was a step back. But Jacob didn't seem to mind. He's quieter now, Emily had said. Less showy. More grounded. Maybe the failed wedding had finally taught him something. Or maybe I just wanted to believe he was changing. Either way, I'd made peace with the fact that his choices and his view of me would no longer shape my life. For too long I'd lived by his moods, his needs, his silence. That chapter was over. I reached into the drawer beside me and pulled out the photo album, the only thing I'd brought from my old house besides some documents and clothes. I turned to a picture from 35 years ago. Me, Derek, and little Jacob on the beach. All of us smiling. I ran my finger over Derek's face. I hope you'd be proud of me, I whispered. I hope you'd say I deserve this. I closed the album and slid it back into the drawer. Tomorrow was the final day before the trip. I still needed to pick up currency from the bank, check my documents and finish packing. In just 3 days I'd be standing on the deck of a cruise ship, watching the coast fade and a new horizon open up, one I'd dreamed of for so long. A life without guilt. Without needing to earn someone's approval. A life filled with discovery, fresh faces, and freedom. My life finally mine. Before bed, I stepped out onto the terrace. The Savannah night sky sparkled with stars. A breeze carried the scent of jasmine from a neighbor's yard. I breathed it in, feeling a calm settle over me. Thank you, I whispered into the dark, to no one and everyone. Maybe to fate. Maybe to myself. Thank you for this second chance. At 67, I was finally living the life I'd always dreamed of. And there was still so much more ahead, so much to see, to feel, to become.